और न जान बचाने वालों को शाबाशी।
Well, I'm absolutely honored to have the powerful crew of The Railwaymen, which I think is this year's most compelling series on Netflix after Trial by Fire. So, a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. It's such a pleasure to have you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words.
Wonderful. Well, look, Shiv, I think I'm going to begin with you. I remember telling you as soon as I watched this series, I was unable to sleep. It was very haunting. I'm going to begin with some of the technical aspects that you've done for this series. I'm very impressed with the way you've used your color grading, especially when it comes to the blues, the browns, the yellows, the camera movement, in particular, one scene when KK Sir's character is walking across the railway tracks and the camera moves with him just to document this sort of horror that is unfolding on screen. Tell me, what has really inspired the way you've told your story and perhaps the decisions you've made in the technical aspects of the series?
Um, Thank you for noticing the finer details, Anuj. I think it's when we make such stuff, when we make these decisions, it's generally for it's generally to have like a subconscious effect on on the audiences, and I'm glad it's translating. But in terms of the color scale, terms of the color, and in terms of the kind of feel we wanted for the show. Somehow everyone, sees India. The global perception of India is very like warm and sepia, and it's like it's a lot like that. And I felt like that's unfair. Like I didn't that's something that I didn't really agree with, because I felt it was a very like cliched and like stereotypical depiction of our country. And I think like we needed to and somehow I always saw like Western cinema seeing themselves in a slightly more different artistic way, you know than uh, than this. And and somehow I always saw that India was always like the style of filming India, especially when Westerners did it. Us Indians, I think, do it beautifully, but when Westerners did, I always felt like they always saw it in a very like kitsch way, and everything was like crowded and overcrowded, and a certain kind of like way, like a lot of like handheld movements and all. I just wanted to break all of this, and I wanted to do something kind of new. And I think it all came from that. And like the entire color language of the show was something that my production designer and cinematographer and I like jammed over and came up with. When I started like conceptualizing to now take this from paper to screen, we started thinking of I remember very early there were a lot of sounds coming in my in my head, and it should sound like this, etc. And then that just went into this very metallic kind of like sounding space, and that led to like the blues, grays, greens, etc. And then I love the Schindler's List. And like I'm a big Steven Spielberg fan, so I think like the only red you see in the whole show is the bride, and
Yeah, true.
that's like my salute to him. And there's also a frame in the second episode, which is you've got this yellow car parked right in front of this light on the train tracks, which is a straight
Yeah.
up frame of First Encounters of the Third Kind, like straight up. And so all these kind of things like made their way in. And then of course like the single shot kind of like feeling, especially with KK. So what you were talking about, like that came a lot from like Children of Men. And I love that
Yeah.
movie, and I felt like it was one of those actioners and dramatic thrillers which really kept the characters going, which was a lot like how I imagined Railwaymen to be. And I feel like as filmmakers you got to be inspired, and I think like every filmmaker inspires you in some way or the other. And with KK was that specific like shoot, like that shot, it's actually a man seeing his kingdom crash, like his kingdom
Mm.
fall. And he doesn't know where to go, because when you're in that situation, every small thing attracts you. So first
Yeah.
the cart falls, then there's a fire, then someone man is falling. He really doesn't know where to go and control the situation. So it's someone like his character who's so much in control of what's happening always. Suddenly seeing things go wrong. And in terms of like the style also of the show, the first episode is very like static cameras and slow moves and like nice like block framing, and the second episode starts going more fluid, and then the third
Mm.
episode gets little more like more angular shots, things like moving, and the fourth episode is all chaos. So it's like kind of trying to give you the progression in terms of like an energy that you should feel. So that was the
Yeah.
whole kind of like summed up, obviously.
This mechanical sounds and the color theory is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what
Yeah,
you just said.
yeah.
Super.
And it's quite ironic as well. This is Yash Raj's first series on with Netflix as well. Because as soon as I watched it, I don't know why, but instantly when I was seeing the male actors assembling together, fighting for humanity, it kind of reminded me and brought back memories of Kala Patthar. I don't know whether that was actually an influence or an inspiration for you, Shiv, at all whilst making this series.
Uh, you know, so I mean, I'm a big fan of Kala Patthar. It's one of my favorite movies all time. And like we were discussing right now, a lot of my work is like especially Railwayman is a lot of my my ode and salute to my favorite filmmakers, and the Ek Rasta Hai Zindagi features
Yeah.
in the series, and I love the movie. And in fact, like uh, a lot of like the Mr. Bachchan's character and Shatrughan Sinha's character, and they kind of have, and that's also based on a tragedy. It wasn't an inspiration, but I knew at the back of my mind like that, like I love that film so much that maybe it was subconscious, but not like on the forefront, of course.
Sure,
But
sure. Right. I have a few more questions to ask, especially about the tragedy itself and framing that. But I want to talk a bit about the heroism that we've seen. Um, these are not your larger than life characters. These are characters which perhaps which are everyday, which are ordinary.
yeah.
I think that is the beauty. I think KK sir, I'm gonna come to you first because this year you've done another wonderful series called Bombay Meri Jaan, and I'm very impressed with these two roles you've done this year, which actually showcase an internal conflict that embrace vulnerability, which makes you kind of in a dilemma of sorts, whether you choose humanity or over or one's sort of decision of life. And I think that's very incredible. When you are playing a character like you have in the Railwayman, which is obviously haunted by a very traumatic past, uh, how do you as an actor not just rely on the source at hand, i.e., the script and the director, and kind of maybe use perhaps personal experiences which might be similar for you to kind of channelize that through your character?
Um, in fact, my entire basis is the text, the script that I read, and the conversations I have with my director and writer. My world is that limited. The reason why I keep it limited is because when the spread is not too much, then you can explore the height and depth of it, and that's what my job is. I've often said this, that if I see a triangle, I'll make it into a pyramid as an actor. If I see a square, I'll make it into a cube. So that's my job, to find height and depth within that. Uh, uh, if I go outside that source which is presented to me, there is no end to it, because then I can bring external elements into it and then spoil the entire screenplay and the way it plays out. So I keep it myself as limited as possible in terms of the landscape of it, and then I explore within that landscape. I explore the height and the depth. So that's how I've been working throughout, and I think conflict is the reason for any drama. So you got to have at various levels, at a micro level, at a macro level, you need to have certain kind of conflicts within yourself, outside yourself, within the screenplay, so that you can bring out the drama in that much depth. And that is the entire exercise. So for me, that's how I approach everything that I do. And as far as the heroes are concerned, as you was just mentioning, I think the word hero is a post facto statement. You know, it's hero is after the facts are over, after the, so it's a post facto statement. Nobody is a hero in the beginning. So all the more necessary and to make it as believable as possible, that through his deeds or that person's deeds, he becomes a hero in the eyes of the people. Doesn't mean that he has to wear a cape and things like that. So it's just that that was given to me in the script itself. And because the session master's character had a PTSD problem and had those kind of traumas around him, and the fact that he was obstinate in terms of his duty and his profession and his protocols, etc., etc. When he finds everything shattered in front of him, it's a fortress coming down. So, and how he deals with it was the exciting exercise for me as an actor.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, sir, it's such an honor to watch you on screen. I cannot tell you how lucky we are. And I think he's honestly a gem of this industry. And I think it was wonderful to really see you in action. And I'm sure Sunny and Divyenndu must have had an amazing time. I'm sure having this a wonderful ensemble. I mean, they themselves are such good talents. So, I mean, I think Sunny, I would love to ask you actually, because even though, of course, your screen time perhaps is of course slightly challenged and limited in that sense, but yet your impact was still quite huge. You could also feel that even though he was not part of the main action, even though he was not there at the time of the gas tragedy, he was on the sort of on the suburbs, let's just say, of the problem, and he was still sort of seeing the problem from from an outsider perspective. Uh, for you and your role as well, what really helped you to bring that sensitivity to that character as well?
Before answering this question, what I missed is when we were talking about KK sir, this is the maximum screen space I'm sharing with him right now. Okay, so I missed that. Coming back to your answer, I think at a human level, you know, you have a responsibility. Uh, Now, when we talk about railwaymen, it was not their responsibility, but it was their humanity which came out in the true sense. When, as Sir said, you become a hero post the incident or post the fact has happened. So that determines, who you are actually. And as you can see, everybody is actually a hero in real sense. But me, first of all, I want to thank the writer and director because the way it was written, I did not feel the character wasn't impactful at all. It was highly impactful on paper, and then the way we have together collaboratively translated it on screen, I think it has come out more, so to say. I feel, and that's kudos to the team. I'm a very small part of that exercise, but definitely with the team, with the effort of the brilliant team behind it, I think it comes across as really impactful. And also as a reporter, he had a responsibility. He was. I mean, I don't know how much it comes across in the show, but he has been after it for the longest time. He's trying to make people aware of the fact that we are sitting on a bomb and nobody is listening. So he is trying to fight, and that is the purpose of his life. And whatever amount of the way it is shown, I think it's very impactful. I'm very, very happy about the fact, and I think the empathy and humanity equally comes out beautifully in the show, from whichever angle we show the journalist character. And it also speaks volumes about the journalists at that time. They were heroes actually. And I feel only grateful to have this ability to have been given this opportunity to play this character. And it's a salute to all those journalists who put the country or the society or their community first, and second to themselves. So that's a big task, to do in a given space. So that was really, really beautiful, I feel.
And I think during the whole 1984 Bhopal gas leak, I think there was, I think, a gentleman named Rajkumar Keswani, who obviously had warned about the gas leaks well in advance. So if you actually think about it, you're right. The role of the journalists really were important. I'm going to get into a bit more about the contextual part in a bit, but Divyenndu, I think I find it very fascinating with your character. I mean, I think we're so used to seeing you as Munna Bhaiya. Like, I think that's such an iconic character of yours, and sort of seeing you step away from that and I guess your character also has very rough and maybe slightly darker shade as well in comparison to all the other sort of heroes, let's just say, of the of the other characters. So for you to really step into that kind of revisit that dark zone, but then also at the same time have a bit of a conflict, like as we were talking about KK sir here, how tough was that for you as an actor to balance those two aspects?
Yeah, I mean, rightly said. I mean, the duality of the character. Uh, he finds himself in a situation where he doesn't belong. He comes from a very different set of principles. He's a survivor, could be a loner in his life, no family, nothing. The only connect he has is with the kids, as you see in his introduction shot and on the railway platform, his connect with the kids. But yeah, he's a bit of a oddball. He's a wild card. Uh, for him, it was great to discover a certain kind of human traits that could have been missing in his life. Going out of your way to help others. Selflessly, and putting your lives on the line of fire. uh, for someone to actually be there, with the people, especially someone like station master, looks up to him. Maybe not very happy with the guy. Also, gets angry. Uh, I mean, irritated, or at times respect him also too much. But it's a whole gamut of emotions he's vis-a-vis he's experiencing through station master, learning on the job, but at the same time not forgetting why he's there,
Yeah,
which I thought made him quite special. Of not making him sort of a cliche or a cardboard figure where we tend to generally show that when a calamity of sorts come, people change completely. They don't actually. You never change. You just react to the situation, but you're always the same person you are. Maybe the impact of the calamity could change you as a person a little. Uh, but we were very, very mindful of the fact that we never wanted to go too off track with Balwant. That was the whole fun of it. That this guy is, while even he's helping around and everything, but still has that mischief, in his actions, in his words, in his thoughts. Yeah, it was quite many shades, quite many different flavors to actually was there for me to discover and taste while playing Balwant.
sure. No, absolutely. But I think you all did a very fabulous job there. I think one thing that I find extremely fascinating, I'm sure for you as filmmakers and writers and creators, is framing tragedy. I mean, the news does it pretty well because they just need the facts and a good sort of editor and a good photographer and videographer, and there they go. They've framed their reality. They framed the reality. They framed the tragedy. Whereas with the film, there is so much more that goes behind the scenes. I'm sure because there's a lot of research that one goes into it. I'm sure. I don't know. I mean, you've used lots of archives as well towards the end of the series to really showcase how horrific it was, and it really was horrific. I mean, 1984 was a very dark year for our country as well. So Shiv, what sources did you have to really rely on, I think, in sort of capturing the I mean, I personally would call it a genocide of sorts. So I mean, how did you really learn what really helped you as a filmmaker to really frame this tragedy that unfolds on screen?
Um, the thing is that when you're taking on this responsibility of doing uh, doing something that's etched in history, it obviously has its own. It comes with its own challenges, and those. It's definitely difficult. The thing is, it starts off with your intention. and what do you want to do with it. One is that we were very clear that our intention was to tell it as it was, and not to dramatize or sensationalize for just to create an effect. But we also knew that the best way to tell the tragedy is through human beings and their emotions, and that's what we try to do. The second thing, which comes from the spirit of the team, which is the aesthetic. Everyone has a certain lens of how they're watching the show and of making the show, and I think that everyone from our all our team members, the technical crew, the actors, everyone understood what we are trying to do. And I think everyone came together to tell this powerful story. And yeah, that's the way we kind of approached it. And we went for something to make everything believable, to make it believable but cinematic, because if it's cinematic, it will leave that emotional impact on you. So it was kind of like balancing this out without going towards becoming a forced uh, a forced image somewhere, or like for lack of a better word, like becoming like tragedy porn.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Right. So, I mean, look, we are a bit pressed for time, but I think this is a very important question because I remember, KK, sir, you, I think, had won an award for Heather at one point at an award ceremony. And I think you made a very interesting comment about, when you play, I mean, I can't remember exactly what you said verbatim, but you said when you play a villain, that's what gets you, like, that's when you get these awards. Like, it was something like that, which I thought was very interesting, where a lot of the times, we see heroes and we don't really celebrate them as much. But in cinema, we suddenly see a villain and we start lapping them up like anything, which I agree. I'm sure for you as artists, it must be fun to play. But why do you think there has been this whole sense of, I wouldn't say glorification, but more kind of eyeballs drawn to villains? And how do you think the Railwaymen has really perhaps re-instigated that dialogue about loving our heroes and supporting our heroes? We'll go to KK, so then we'll go to Sunny, and then we'll go to Divyenndu.
I guess if there is no villain, there's no hero. That's how it operates. So if you don't have the opposite force, from what I don't remember saying this, but since you've mentioned villain, I think I have in some interviews mentioned about the fact that there's nothing like a villain. There's a person who thinks differently compared to the norms, social norms, and that person becomes bad because his deeds are bad as per humanity. Yeah. So, but that person never feels he's doing wrong. That's the whole idea. So when you play a villain in a film or anywhere, it's essential that the person that you're playing believes that he's doing right, and that's when it gets very threatening and vicious. So, but if you are in your mind as an actor thinking that you're playing the villain, then you're doomed. Then you're into caricatures. That's what I must have meant.
Right.
Yeah, as far as heroes are concerned, I think heroes have been worshipped all the time. It's just that sometimes the dark side people kind of get attracted to, and that's I think is also only restricted to cinema and things like that. I don't think that happens in real life. Heroes are always worshipped.
Sure, sure. Beautiful. Thank you for that, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, like Sir said, I mean, there are darker shades. There are no villains, so to say. It's what we term them as villains. And rightly said, I mean, we've worshipped the hero-ness and everything, saving the world syndrome for, way too much, so it's obvious that you would get attracted to the other side. Uh, but yeah, in this case of railwaymen, they are definitely heroes, which because when you go, but heroes you can relate to. They're not with the superpowers, or they're not trying to go every night out, trying to save the humanity. No, situation comes, you rise up to the occasion, and you do the needful. That's what heroes are. I mean, yeah, these are ordinary people, rising up to the occasion, taking the call. Uh, trying to do whatever the best they can do. But again, I mean, if you talk about, for example, Balwan, he's a hero, but not with a little darker shade, right? And that's what makes us even more human, right? That you can have a good deed, but no one is just good or just bad or just ugly, right? We all have different shades in them. I think, yeah, that was the whole point there.
Amazing. Well, look, I think it's been such an honor and such a privilege to have all of you on this panel. And the Railway Man is so special, and I think it's honestly gonna stick with me forever. I remember watching Trial by Fire, and Sande Se Aate Hai haunts me after watching that. And I think even Ek Rasta Hai Zindagi haunts me because it just reminds you of the tragedy that's just you've witnessed, and the fact that people have lived through this, and many people have lost families, loved ones. I think it's horrendous, and I'm really thankful to Shiv, Netflix, YRF for actually bringing this story to mainstream cinema. It's so important, and thank you all for being such wonderful artists, and thank you for a lovely interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Anish.
thank you,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Anish.
thank you.
Thank you. All right. See you later.
Bye,
Bye.
bye, bye.
All right.
Oh.